Hello, Michelle.
Hello, good morning. Bonjour, I should say.
Bonjour. Yes, yes. So happy to have you here with us. And, it was such a treat to be on your show a couple months ago. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a joy to connect with you, and I love reconnecting with you now.
Well, especially now that you are back from Paris. So, before we dive in, because of course I have lots of questions about you and what you do, tell us a little bit about your recent trip to Paris. There's a beautiful French saying like "tell me everything," and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because I'll butcher it, so I'll just say it in English." But yes, so like,
Oh,
what were some highlights?
oh my gosh, it was so good. Well, it's interesting because I've been to Paris before. It was 17 years ago, but this was a solo trip. And my husband enjoys traveling, but not as much as I do. And I had some serious wanderlust. So I just decided to go for it. And I did a lot of wonderful things. I think one of my favorite things to do, or that I did, was we did a bike trip to Versailles, or I did a bike trip to Versailles with a group. And a lot of the activities that I booked, I actually booked through Airbnb, which I don't know if you've ever tried that, but it made it super, super simple. Everyone was so nice. And I was so proud of myself because I booked that for the second day. And to get to where we needed to meet, I had to navigate the subway. And I did it with no problem. It was super easy to get around. Oh, I did a lot of wine and cheese tasting. In fact, I got there on a Friday and left the following Friday. And by that Wednesday, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of tired of bread and cheese. But can you ever really get that tired of
Never,
bread and cheese?
right?
No. But it was so good. And I felt like I really was able to meet some really interesting people. I did a speakeasy tour one night that
Ah,
I don't know if you know, and I'm happy to share some names because we got an entire list of lots of speakeasies that are in Paris. And I really only made it to two before it was a long night. I was like, I've got to get up early tomorrow. But it was so much fun to see. One had a really sort of a 1920s theme to it, and one was a Mexican speakeasy in a hotel, and they served all these tequila drinks and chips and salsa. And but it was kind of fun because you go through the back way, you go through the kitchen, nobody would really know it was there, and then the curtain opens and ooh, you're like, hey. But that was a lot of fun. But I think really just what I enjoyed was just being there, sitting in a cafe, sipping a cup of coffee, eating a beautiful, delicious pastry that were, oh my gosh, they were so light and flaky and beautiful. I told my son the other day, I was like, gosh, getting a croissant or a pastry here in the US, they're good, but they're a lot heavier.
mhm.
There, I had this beautiful flaky pastry and I ate it. I'm like, wow, like I ate the entire thing. I wasn't really full. I didn't feel like I had eaten too much. It was just light and oh my God, it was amazing. I almost wanted another one because it tasted so good, but I restrained myself. But it just, oh, just the food and the sights. I did a lot of walking,
Mm.
which I think is one of the best parts of Paris, just walking and seeing the fashion on the streets and the beauty and the gardens and the tea rooms. And I fell in love with the Latin Quarter. I think that is
Mhm.
my absolute favorite area. And although there are so many beautiful places in Paris, I did a cruise down the Seine, if I'm saying that correctly, the
Yeah,
Seine River, Seine
yeah.
River, with wine and cheese, and had some champagne, got some beautiful pictures. And I think that was something that I thought, well, it sounds kind of touristy to do. A lot of people said you should definitely do it. You should definitely do it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it nearly as much as I did.
Mm.
And I think just seeing Paris from that perspective, where we started, was very near Notre Dame, which I didn't realize Notre Dame is technically on an island,
Mm. Yes, yes.
which is very cool. So I felt like I got to see it from a different perspective and got to learn a lot about history, got to taste some beautiful wines and cheeses. And it was just so relaxed. And it was on a day where it was supposed to be rainy, but the sun ended up coming out a little bit, but then it was kind of cloudy. So it wasn't too hot. It was perfect. It was a perfect way to
Mm.
end the trip. But
Ah.
oh, it was so good. I did some shopping. I did a little bit of everything. and I'm
Well,
ready to come back.
I'll bet you are. I'll bet you are. I mean, your
Can I
photos,
come
it
with
look,
you next week?
I know, right? The
Yes.
photos were just amazing. I was like, oh, she's having like
Um,
perfect time.
yes, it was hot. It was very hot there during the day, but then it would get cool at night. So I brought layers. And I ended up wearing two pairs of shoes. I talked a lot about what I wore in Paris because, being a style coach, but brought a lot of layers. I definitely had an umbrella, had a great trench coat, and I really found myself wearing two pairs of shoes. I had a great pair of sneakers, and
Mhm.
then I had some fun reversible sandals that had a slight wedge, but they were super comfy. In fact, I wore those the day we went to Versailles and ended up, I think I got in like 15,000 steps
Wow.
and super, super comfy. But I felt like it was good. I probably did overpack, but I made it back in one piece and they let me on the plane. So
Well, my goal, and I'm looking over because I've got my suitcase here. My goal, we'll see, is to do a carry-on to go there. We will see.
go
I don't
girl.
know that this is going to happen because I usually do carry-on size, but I expand it, the expandable kind. But I'm like, can I? Like, this is my goal. But I'm delivering some clothes to a few people. So I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to, but I hope to. I'm going to try. But I'm curious. One of the things that I'll bet listeners are curious about because they ask is A, packing, B, traveling alone. Like I
Mm,
find it
mhm.
freaking amazing. Like I prefer it. Like I really, really enjoy it. It's so fun to meet up with people though and do things, but then I need a lot of like quiet me time. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious for you, how did you find that? Because, for some people it's intimidating to go to a restaurant alone or a speakeasy alone or, even a bike trip to Versailles.
Sure, sure. Well, you asked about packing first. I have a great resource. In fact, on my podcast, episode number 86 is called Your Guide to Packing for Travel.
Perfect.
And I had actually done another podcast last year about travel, and I decided to really take that and then make it a little bit more succinct and really dive in because there are some key things to think about when you're packing that can really streamline things. But kudos to you for wanting to take a carry on. That was my goal. But so many people said, you're going to want to do some shopping. You're going to want to bring things back. You're going to want a suitcase coming back, which it turns out I did. And so I packed almost all of my clothes in carry-ons or in my carry-on, my, what do you call it? Personal item.
Yeah.
I kind of fudged that a little bit. I pushed the limit.
My
But
large personal item.
yes, but then I had a larger suitcase that I had checked and I put a few things in there just to kind of spread it out. And I had my hat in there because I knew on our bike trip to Versailles, I would want a hat being in the sun all day. But coming back, that thing was filled to the brim. But you asked about solo travel. Well, I think, to be honest, that was my first solo trip out of the country, but it was also my first real solo vacation. But I will say though, I was a fashion designer for 14 years or for 12 years, and then I've been a style coach for 14 years. I've owned a boutique for 7 years. And because of that, there have been a lot of opportunities to travel solo. But I've always gone to a trade show or I've traveled to a conference or I've traveled somewhere to speak. And so traveling solo for me, I think really opened up a lot of things. I love food. I'm such a foodie. I will absolutely go and find, the nicest restaurant and go sit down at a table by myself, order the fabulous bottle of wine, order whatever I want. I don't have any problems with that. And it's interesting because I think a lot of women feel uncomfortable, but I think when you're in a town or in a city, you don't know anybody. Like, I don't really care. Like, I am worth it. I want to spend time by myself. And I know I'm an introvert too. So, but I think when you can just, say yes to yourself and enjoy your own company, whether you take a journal and you write or you just enjoy the scenery, especially in Paris, you could easily sit at a sidewalk cafe and there are a lot of people on their own. There are a lot of couples or families, or not really families, but groups, but there were a lot of solo diners. And so I don't think it's uncommon there to go and sit at a cafe and do your thing and nobody thinks anything about it. but I felt very safe. My mom, oh my gosh, she was so worried about me. But I think, I've been to New York a million times and I've ridden the subway alone. I've been out at night. Like I'm not going to put myself in an uncomfortable situation. But at the same time, I'm confident in my ability to navigate, to get around. I love spending time on my own and just, being on my own agenda, doing things at my own pace. I did do a lot of group things. I tried to plan something every day where I was meeting with a group, usually an Airbnb group. So I would have some sort of connection. And on the first day when I did my bike tour to Versailles, I met another solo traveler.
Hmm.
And she and I hung out. We had a great time. And then we ended up meeting up later on the next day to go to I'll try to say the name, the Marché aux Puces,
Yes, yes.
the flea market. So
Totally.
we met up there and then we ended up having some lunch. And then I invited her to go to a wine tasting with me, which was great. It was kind of nice to feel like I had a friend there.
Yeah.
And then I did another tour where it ended up, it was really like a market tour and a food and wine tour. I ended up being the only person on the tour. And there was a beautiful guide. She actually has a company that she's got like 25 people who work for her to give tours, but she rarely does tours herself. She happened to do that one herself. And so it's just me with her. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got a personal guide. I got to see some things that I probably wouldn't normally have seen and just have some good conversations. We took some pictures and some videos for Instagram. And I left feeling like almost like a local because I felt like people, even I don't speak very much French. Un petit, un
Mhm,
petit.
mhm,
But I
mhm.
tried and I would walk into somewhere and say, parlez-vous anglais? Now, my
Mhm.
daughter has taken French for, 15 years and she has taught me some things.
Yeah.
But I found that when I made an attempt, people were very, very friendly. And I had some really creative conversations with some people who spoke zero English, but we communicated beautifully with hand gestures or facial expressions or trying to show something. I was trying to ask the housekeeper in the hotel about getting more bath salts because at the hotel where I stayed, they had this beautiful bathtub and they give you a small little pack of bath salts. And then I tell you what, after walking 15,000 steps in a day, you want some more bath salts. And I was trying to ask her, and I'm using Google Translate. I'm like, sel de bain, sel de bain. Like, that's what Google's telling me it is. And she's like, what? Like making all these gestures. And finally, she's like, sel de bain or something. I'm sure I'm not getting the inflection right, but I was missing some sort of intonation, inflection. And then it was like, bingo, the lights went off. I'm showing her the package. I'm like, this is what they came in. And she still didn't get it. But finally, and we both had a good laugh. I'm like, we are totally not speaking the same language, but we had this moment together. And it was fun. It was like, okay, we're all the same. We're all the same.
Yeah.
But I would highly, highly recommend solo travel if you've ever thought about it. Start locally. You go to another town, another city, start small, build up your confidence. But I am ready. I'm like, okay, there is a whole new world that has opened up to me now. Where am I going to go next?
Yeah. No, it does. It definitely takes a level of confidence, right? To navigate the subway, to go to on these adventures solo. I love Airbnb experiences. They're so amazing. And yeah, and I had that once too. I had signed up for a watercolor class and it was just
Mhm.
me and the teacher. Nobody else showed up. And it was like, oh my gosh, a private lesson. Like this is amazing. But thank you for sharing because it is, I think it's helpful for our listeners, to recognize that if you have a dream to go somewhere but you're like, well, nobody really wants to go or the timing doesn't work for them, well, that's okay. We'll just, I'm going to go. And I do find too that going to Paris for 5 days is actually a really nice amount. Like I typically will fly out, say, on a Wednesday night, so I get there Thursday, Friday, I have Saturday, Sunday, and I'll come back Monday or Tuesday. So it's
Mm.
quite quick,
Mhm.
but somehow that just, it works. I'm not away too long. It just feels, it feels like, okay, I got my little taste and then I'm back. So to recognize it doesn't have to be some massive undertaking. So thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about you. And my apologies, listeners and you, for the sounds of my senior pup wandering around and making lots of noises. That's what they do. So in your bio, what I really liked about your bio is you talk about giving yourself a makeover from the inside out.
Mm, mhm.
Beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about yourself, your work, and what does this mean, which I
Sure.
really love, a makeover from the inside out?
Mhm. Well, it's interesting. I think, yeah, Kimberly, I grew up loving fashion. And I used to think that, I used to say I have a passion for fashion. And I used to love to dress my Barbies. I think I grew up, I have a very stylish mom. My dad was actually he wasn't really a style maven, but he always wanted to dress well. And I think that was kind of instilled in me from a young age, but I've always been interested. But I think what I was really interested in when I was really young is, when you would see someone who is dressed to the nines, but it's not about the clothes. It's like you just know who they are because of the way they present themselves. And so that's really from a young age what I was always very interested in. And I was trying, going through all these motions, trying to figure out what is my style, what looks good on me. And I'd try things that I'd seen friends wear or what I saw in magazines. And, certain things felt right or certain things didn't. But I also, as I was growing up, struggled with my weight. I struggled with self-esteem. I struggled with confidence. I struggled with feeling good in my own skin. And I used to beat myself up in a big way, mentally, and tell myself, you're too fat, you're not good enough, you're not pretty, all the negativity every single day. Every time I look in the mirror and I look back and I just cringe now because of what I said to myself. But I also cringe because I know so many other women who have told me they say the same thing. And so if you say the same thing to yourself, you are not alone. But I really invite you to flip the script because it's just, you are beautiful in the skin you're in right now. We're all worthy. And it took me a very long time to realize that. But I think when I was in my early 30s, I kind of started, well, I was a clothing designer. I started designing clothing when I was in my late 20s. And that was really kind of my path. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to be a clothing designer. And that's my path. And so I did. And, I used to go to New York and then we'd show clothes and sell to boutiques around the country. And, that was fine, but it was a means to an end. I see that now. But I think what happened is I went through a few iterations before I had my daughter. My first child, I had her when I was 35. And I remember she's 19 now. And so I remember when I first gave birth to her, standing in the bathroom getting ready to take my very first shower. And it's interesting. My mother-in-law said something to me recently about feeling the same way. And she and I have never had this conversation, but I'm like, okay, I'm not alone in this either. But standing there, getting ready to take my very first shower, thinking, oh my God, what is my body going to look like now? Because here's somebody who's struggled with their weight, who's beaten themselves up for being too fat, being heavy. And, I will say that my dad he had weight issues. He struggled with his weight. And when I was 10 and my brother was 8, he gave us $1 a pound to lose weight because he saw us putting on a few pounds. And I think what happened during that process is I made weight equivalent with shame. If I'm heavy, I'm not good enough. If I weigh too much, I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not okay. I had to really work through that. And he certainly had the best of intentions for us. He loved us very much. He didn't know, like, that was his stuff. That was his issue. But I grew up with this belief that I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, just awful, awful, awful stuff. And I think so much of what I felt is perpetuated in the media, in the world. We get all these messages. And so we women, men too, have it rough, I think. But I think what really happened for me is when I gave birth to my daughter, I'm standing there getting ready to take my first shower, getting ready. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I gained 50 pounds with her. Pregnancy for me was a license to eat. Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mints were my favorite. And I would eat
Love.
them by the sleeve.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
anyway, so you can imagine, like, okay, I gained 50 pounds, give birth to Ivy. She was almost 10 pounds, but you don't lose the weight. It's still there. And so I'm having this moment of getting ready to look at myself in the mirror, like, what does my body look like now? What, what aliens have, anyway, it was just this moment. And within that moment, I mean, for me, it was a very spiritual experience. It was like, oh no, you are going to shift. And it was just this moment of gratitude. Like, okay, I can see my body. I can be grateful that I did natural childbirth, like no epidural, no nothing. And it was this really just this spiritual experience for me. And it was just this like divine feeling of like, okay, just find the gratitude. And so I was like, okay, I'm glad. I'm so grateful that I can hold her with my hands. I'm grateful that my body birthed her and she's healthy and I'm healthy. And it just started this flood of gratitude out of nowhere. Like I had not really been practicing gratitude. I maybe a little bit, but not really. But it was just this flood of gratitude. And from there, everything changed. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself and to my daughter. I was like, okay, she needs a mom that's going to be a good example. I need to be the example for her. I need to get over my crap, my stuff, my all my stuff that's holding me back so I can be the mom that she needs.
Mm.
And that was pivotal for me. And I didn't know, this is before I had really done any work on mindset or anything. It just it was like, okay, I'm being guided. I'm just doing my thing. And then I started writing notes on the mirror, like affirmations. But I think where the style came in was, and this is what I coach my clients to do now, it's find something about yourself to be grateful for and then play it up. And so I'd look in the mirror and say, ooh, my hair looks good today. What color can I wear to enhance my hair? Or, maybe I've got nice teeth. Maybe I'll wear a new shade of lipstick. Or I've got nice legs. Let me wear a skirt and show them off. But it was acknowledging something about me and saying, ooh, you've got a good smile. But what I've found when I tell clients, because a lot of people have said, well, I can't really say anything nice about myself. So if you're there, I just would recommend find something that you can compliment yourself on. Are you a good friend? Are you a good sister? Are you a good mother? Could you do something kind for someone? Start with kindness, start with gratitude. And then it just unfolds. And then you can say, hey, my hands actually don't look at my manicure today because I'm getting my nails done. But when you can look at yourself and say, hey, I can acknowledge that I'm going to wear great earrings that draw attention to my face or that are bring in one of my favorite colors or that make me smile. When you can find something on yourself and then play it up, that's where the magic happens. And then what people see is like, wow, you look amazing today. And then you walk out of the house and you get compliments because you're wearing a color that lights you up or makes your hair look good. And then what happens? Your self-esteem is elevated.
Mhm.
And so that's what happened for me. I would start doing something every day. I wasn't really losing weight. I had actually gotten to a point where I was like, okay, my body is what it is, and I'm grateful. And so a lot of that was accepting myself where I was, meeting myself where I was, and saying, you know what, I just birthed a child. I created a human. I'm good. I don't care if I'm at my ideal weight. Plus, my body changed. Like things shift in weird way. My feet got bigger. It was like, okay, this body is completely different from pre-birth, which was totally fine. But it put me down this path for having a makeover from the inside out. And then I started dressing in a way that showed off things that I loved. And then a couple of neighbors, a couple of friends started asking me. It was funny because I was doing some mind mapping one day. I was like, ooh, what am I going to do? Because at the time, I had a beauty and style blog called One Chic Mama. And it wasn't about me. It was about it was about bringing out the chic mom, because sometimes when you become a mom you get lost along the way. You're taking care of everybody else, but where's the chic mama? Where's the
Mhm.
woman that's got the style, that's connected to herself? So I had a beauty and style blog designed to help moms stay in touch with who they were. And I'm doing some blogging, I'm doing some mind mapping. And one day during this mind mapping session, what came up for me was image consulting, because I was like, I know there's more here. There's something more I need to be doing. An image consultant came up. And my first thought is, I am not doing that. I am not going to be an image consultant. And I called it image consulting back then. But I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be an image consultant. And then in that split moment, that split second was like, I get to be a style, I get to be an image consultant. And it was just this, again, this like divine knowing, like, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then it just, I was just filled with this knowing that like, this is your purpose. Like, this is why you're here. And
Mhm.
so for me, it was like, whoa, what just happened? But the crazy thing is, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll start researching. I'll start looking around. Well, people had other plans. So God had other plans for me. People started asking me, oh, can you help me clean out my closet? Hey, can you help me know what colors to wear? Hey, can you take me shopping? I'm like, that's like totally what comes naturally to me. Like, that's what I'm good at. Sure, no problem. And then it was a light bulb moment. It's like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. Let me work with 5 people and learn my stuff. And then I did my training. I signed up for some courses, was certified to do color analysis. And then boom, it just put me on this path. And I embraced it 1,000%, as if like, this is why I'm here. And it's not about me. And so that's where the makeover from the inside out came from. But it started, it wasn't just the clothes. And I tell people, it's never just about the clothes. It's about who you become in the clothes.
Mhm.
And it's about how you show up and how you feel about yourself. So but it's all so connected.
Absolutely. And I love your reminder to highlight whatever it is you feel good about. Like one of the things I've even heard of, women who are really tall, it's like highlight, like wear freaking heels. It's like, what
Yes.
is it that helps you stand out? That's your go to. One woman who was a model early on for my clothing line loves glasses, right? So she just has all these fun, funky, different frames. So it's like, what is it that you are drawn to that just kind of you can bring out and, as you say, feel good about yourself as you walk out the door or you walk into a room? Is it
Mm,
really is that? And I love what you said too. It's not about the clothes. I mean,
right.
you can have a t-shirt and jeans and it's about how you feel in it, where you really just like you can show up.
Yeah, there's a great quote. What makes you different makes you unique.
Mhm.
And I like to take that even further and say, what you were picked on for. I was having this conversation with somebody the other night. What you were picked on for as a child, like people used to pick on my cheekbones when I was a child. They used to call me chipmunk cheeks. And now women will come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I love your cheekbones. I'm like, do you know how much grief I caught for these things? Well, think about, if you have curly hair or red hair, or you're tall, or you're short, or you're heavy, or you're too thin, like whatever, kids will make fun of anything. But it's the thing that makes you different and that stands out, that a lot of times it's the thing that you got picked on for. That's your gift.
Mhm.
That's your gift. Like that's what makes you, helps you to stand out and differentiate yourself and shine in your unique brilliance. And I think
Absolutely.
so many people walk up and they're like, oh, or go through life and they just think that, oh my gosh, I'm too tall, I'm too this. They hold themselves small, they hide. And it's
Mhm.
totally the opposite. It's like that's what helps you shine. That's what helps you be
Mhm.
more yourself.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I think it's such a great reminder. And that kind of leads into my next question. One of the things that you mention is helping people get dressed effortlessly. I really like that. And
Yes.
so give our listeners, if you would, a few of your favorite tips. And I know you have a little gift that you're going to be sharing that ties into this, but how do you encourage people to get dressed effortlessly and really kind of, hone in on their special spark?
Sure, sure. Well, I've got 5 steps that I really, guide my clients through. But first and foremost, I tell women, oh, so many women come to me and they tell me, oh, I don't have style or I've lost my style. Everybody has style. Everybody, everybody has a style, whether you used to know what it was or you've never known what it was. You have a style that is unique to you. And when I work with clients, it's about pulling it out. It's from the inside out. It's not just, hey, let's just put clothes on you from the outside in. It's let's discover who you are. And so I think the first step is decide who you want to be. And it doesn't mean that you're trying to be somebody different. It just means that what's guiding you? Where do you want to go? How do you want to see yourself? What is the image that, because typically if people start working on their style, it's because they're not happy with where it is at that moment. And so when you can decide, you can say, hey, I want to show up as more powerful or more playful or more fun, or I want to stand out more, or I want to wear more color, or I want to incorporate comfort into my workwear, whatever it is, there's zero point zero judgment. But when you can decide how you want to show up, who you want to be, who you're stepping into, that's first and foremost. Because think of it like, a roadmap. When you have a roadmap, you know where to go, you know where your end goal is. But if you don't know, anything's an option. And if anything's an option, it leads to overwhelm and confusion. And so when you know what your goal is, it may change along the way, but it just means that you start out and you have that desire in mind. My second step is find a style icon. Now, I have a whole podcast about finding your own style icon, how to find a style icon. And I tell people it's never, ever about copycatting, but it's about finding someone whose style you resonate with. Because, when you see somebody, you're like, ooh, I really admire that. I could see myself wearing that. I love how she puts together her colors. Or it could be an Instagram influencer. It could be your mother. It could be your sister. It could be anybody. But when you have a style icon, you have, it takes your goal and then it's like, ooh, those two should be aligned. Find a style icon that really epitomizes what it is you want to step into. So you have a visual. And then especially if it's a celebrity or if it's an influencer on Instagram, then you can go and see, what do they wear to a formal event? What do they wear to work out? What do they wear on the weekends? What's their everyday look? You can see multiple iterations of that. And it just helps to guide you. But it also helps you to know, ooh, I really like their signature pieces. I like their blazers or their glasses or their colors or their hair or whatever. It shows you what you like. And from there, my third step is I usually say a Pinterest board. Now, you could go old school and totally do a vision board, cut out pictures, but some sort of visual cue. Pinterest boards, actually, one of our girls on the team figured out how you can actually download a Pinterest board. And so you could print out your entire Pinterest board and that could be your vision board. But when you have that visual representation, maybe your style icons on there, maybe the colors you want to wear are on there, maybe the mood you want to evoke is on there, or the things that are influencing your style. Is it very feminine? Is it very, edgy? Is it comfy? Is it athletic? It doesn't matter. It just matters that you resonate with it. Style is about so much more than clothes. It's about a feeling. And when you have that visual representation, that helps you to know what you want to create, what you want to bring in. And then I encourage you to play dress up. This is my favorite part. Whether you get into your closet or whether you go to a boutique or a department store, it doesn't matter. But when you can take these visual ideas and start putting those into play and realize, ooh, I really like this fit of jeans, or I don't like the way this top goes with these pants, but I like this better. Or maybe tucking my shirt in isn't my favorite thing, but I'm going to find another way to wear it. Or trying a new trick. There are so many. I love Instagram and TikTok just for the inspiration. So many different ways to wear things, mix colors, prints, patterns. I know I've gotten some great inspiration on there. But when you can play dress up and see it on yourself, when you find something you love, take a picture. Take a picture. You don't have to show it to anybody, but it helps you to remember, ooh, I like this outfit, and helps you to know what you want more of. And then you want to begin to cultivate your ideal look. That's where you want to go shopping and ask yourself, well, what pieces do I need to bring in? What are the signature pieces? What colors, textures, shapes? Do I want more dresses? Am I going to wear sneakers? Am I going to wear blazers and jeans? What is it that you want more of? And so you begin to cultivate it in a meaningful way. And it's interesting, people look at me when I say this kind of in a funny way, but yes, I own a clothing boutique, but I tell women, most women don't need more clothes. They need the right clothes. Because most women, if you ask them, if you walk into their closet, you open up the closet door and they've got way too much in there, but they can't get dressed in 7 minutes or less because there's too much and because they didn't have a strategy.
Right.
It's just, ooh, let me put more clothes in the closet. No, I love what you teach, Kimberly, or with all of your clothing. It's a capsule. Yeah. Everything works together. And so my philosophy is very similar. It's like, you want that capsule. So
Mhm.
you can easily grab a top and know it's going to go with 3 or 4 different pairs of pants or skirts. You want the shoes that you know you can wear with, 25 outfits, not just one. That's where you get the simplicity. And then the other thing I'll add to that is picking, and this kind of adds, I feel this adds tranquility to your day because it reduces decision fatigue. But when you pick your outfit out the night before,
Mhm.
I'll even go a step further and say, get in your closet and have a dress up session and pick out outfits for the coming week or for 3 or 4 days at a time. And then it's like, oh, I know, I mean, I'm a style coach. I can get dressed in a minute, but I love it when I walk into my closet. I'm like, oh, I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear. It's done for me. And it just makes my day so much better.
Well, I love this too, how you tie in, because this is my last question for you, Michelle, is how do you find tranquility in your everyday? And I love how you say really decision fatigue to narrow it down. So helpful, right? Because one of the things we talked about when I was on your podcast is, I've read that we wear 20% of what's in our closet. So, doing the whole closet clean out, all of this is just, it's so important to really get into, okay, who is this style icon that I'm drawn to that I want to emulate? Again, we're not going to be this person. And I don't know if you remember JFK's Junior's wife, Carolyn Bassett.
Yeah, she had
She was
beautiful
a
style. She
great
was
style. Like
stunning.
she was like my, oh my gosh, I
Mm,
love you style. But yeah, it's like who is it? Who are you drawn to? And even kind of having those images up in your closet, if you have doors that open, having those or putting that Pinterest board that you download.
mm,
But my last question for you is like, how are you finding tranquility in your everyday? Because you're a coach, right? You've got the boutique, so you've got the podcast, you've got a lot going on. So give us your favorite tip.
Oh gosh, so many things. Well, I mean, first of all, I think prioritizing self-care,
Mm.
knowing that I just, I make it a priority. And I think for me, this might be kind of a strange one, but through what I eat, through food. Like I know I'm always setting myself up for success. In fact, I'll admit, even when I went to France, I took my own breakfast. I made overnight oats every single day. And I eat oatmeal every morning. I make what I call my probiotic oats, but it reduces decision fatigue. I don't have to get up and think about it. I just get up and I can be on autopilot. And as I wake up, I'm like, okay, I've got my thing. In fact, this morning I was up and out. We left the house at 6:30 to get my son to school. And I make my breakfast every morning. I have my tea every morning. And so I feed myself well. And I try to do it in a way that I don't have to be like, oh my God, it's dinner time. What am I going to make? Because that
Mhm.
causes me a lot of stress,
Totally.
especially when I'm feeding people that don't. My husband, my son, who, I could eat a certain way. I could eat vegan all the time. And I'm not vegan, but I eat a lot of plant-based things. But for them, they're big meat eaters. They want
Mhm.
more, you know, anyway, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
That planning my outfits,
Mhm.
yoga, and
Mhm.
really trying to spend time in nature. That for me is so important.
Yeah, so, so important. Yeah, thank you. These are
Mhm.
great reminders. And I really like too with the breakfast piece, it's, decision fatigue. Also, if every morning I'm gonna have my overnight oats, you don't have to think about it because how often do we open our cupboard or refrigerator and we're like, I don't know what to eat. So I love that you kind of do the same thing you do with your clothes with regard to food. And thank you so much again, Michelle, for being here. And listeners will have a link in the show notes to her special gift for you all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just so appreciate you and I appreciate the beautiful work that you're putting out into the world.
Well, thank you. And now, can I share what the free gift is?
Sure.
So I do have a free gift. It's just it's a downloadable ebook, and it's called The 5 Elements of Style. I call it what every woman should know before getting dressed. And it's actually I based it on my very first podcast, but it's really the elements that I base my style coaching around. And it's when you understand these elements, you have a roadmap, you know the what, and you can gain a lot of clarity just from those 5 things.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was such a delight.